The future of agent development isn't just about writing more code. It's about having the right tools to understand what your code is doing. LangGraph Studio is a powerful agent IDE that sits at the heart of the LangChain ecosystem to help you build and debug your agents. Today, we're going to walk through how to accelerate your agent development with LangGraph Studio. We've streamlined the setup process, making it easy and straightforward to get started. First, you'll want to make sure you've created your LangGraph application. For more information about LangGraph, we'll link to more videos and documentation below. As you can see, for this example, we went with a pretty simple React agent. We have a Tabbly search tool. Then we have our system prompt defined here, as well as our model. And then we use the create React agent prebuilt in order to render our graph. In order to use Studio to its full potential, we'll want to check a few things. First, we'll want to make sure that we have a langgraph.json file created and properly configured. The langgraph.json file is a JSON configuration file that specifies the dependencies, graphs, environment variables, and other settings required to deploy a LangGraph application. It serves as the central configuration file for all LangGraph applications. One of the most important things when you're making this file is to ensure that you're pointing to your graph properly. From there, we can open up our terminal, and we can make sure that we have the LangGraph CLI installed. Great. The next thing is to simply run langgraph dev, and you'll see our server spins right up. This command does two things. It launches a local development server that exposes your graph via an API, and opens Studio in your browser where you can immediately start working with your agent. The best part, any changes you make to your code are instantly reflected in Studio, making iterations lightning fast. Now that our local server is up and running, we can go ahead and invoke our agent and visualize how it runs through our graph. In Studio, we can also easily manage and test interrupts before and after each node. This is an excellent way to determine when and where we might want to add a human in the loop. You can see now it's asking me to continue before using the search tool. And after a few back and forths, it eventually came back to me with all of the NBA news for today. Another amazing feature of Studio is the ability to fork conversations. We can go ahead and hit the pencil icon here. And we can say, let's see what would happen maybe if we asked for music news instead. Click fork here, and it creates a new fork of this conversation. Great, so now we're seeing the music news instead. You can also do this at the tool call up. Let's go ahead and modify the search query that I put in here. Let's go back to sports. You can see now, we actually did return back our sports news, but our agent was smart enough to know that we were searching for music news instead since we didn't change our human message. It then was able to find the latest music news and return that back to the user. Next, let's jump into our chat tab up here. Our chat tab enables us to visualize our LangGraph applications in a traditional chat UI to see how it would behave in multi-turn conversations. This is great to bring in business users and subject matter experts to test your agents in real time. Testing and iterating on our prompts is easy to do in Studio since our local server will auto reload anytime we make changes to our underlying code. You can adjust and experiment with prompt configurations, structural changes, and test your changes directly within Studio live, enabling for faster iterations and improved performance tuning. Let's say, for example, every time I search for sports news, I wanted to return the latest NBA news. We can make that change here. Additionally, let's say maybe I want to update to a faster or better model. I can do that here. Great. You'll see as we've been doing that, our server's been automatically reloading with these updates. Back in Studio, we can test these changes live. Let's try and get the sports news again. Great, you can see now it's returning the NBA news first. This is expected since I asked it to in the prompt. Additionally, if we drill into our LLM runs, we can see that we're using 3.7. If you'd rather test your prompts out a few times within Studio before modifying your underlying code, you can dive deeper into any thread by opening it directly within Playground. This gives us immediate insights and flexibility to experiment further on the agent's behavior and configurations as you're reviewing your threads in LangSmith. Let's go ahead and jump into this thread, for example. You can click the View LLM Run button, then click right here, and that'll open up our thread in Playground. Now that we're in our prompt Playground, there's a few different things that we can do. We can go ahead and modify our system prompt, so let's maybe ask it to tell a joke every time. We can also go ahead and change our model. So click here in the prompt settings. We can change our provider. Let's try OpenAI. Let's give GPT-4.1 a chance. From here, we can rerun it. And you'll see it's adding a joke after every headline. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful features of Studio, the seamless integration we have with our production traces in LangSmith. For this, we've deployed our demo React agent with LangGraph Platform, and we've let our users interact with it. We also set up some rules and some online evaluators to monitor its performance. Let's go ahead now and filter down into a trace that we'd like to debug locally using Studio. So for this application, I set up an online evaluator for relevance. So we're able to filter down to find what were the least relevant traces that we have in our production application. Let's go ahead and dive into this trace and get a better idea as to why it got that score. Opening up this trace, you can see it got a score of 0.1 for relevance. As I dive into it, I can see that it got the latest basketball news, but it only returned news related to college basketball. That's not ideal. We have the NBA playoffs going on right now, and I would assume that any user asking for the latest basketball news is most likely referring to the NBA. So let's go ahead and open up our code, and let's try and make some changes in order to debug this. Back in our underlying code, let's see what we can do to make our application perform a little bit better. Looking at our Tabular search tool, I can see that our max search results are at 5. Let's upgrade that to 10 maybe. Additionally, our search depth is at basic right now. Let's try advanced. Additionally, scrolling down, there's a few things that we can do to modify our prompt. You can see we're passing today's date. So maybe we want to ask the agent to maybe consider the time of year and what might be most relevant that time of year for sports. Let's go ahead and modify our prompt a bit. Great. We've made a bit of a toy example here, but basically we're telling the agent that if it's the NBA playoffs, for example, in May, we should return news related to the NBA first. If it's March, we should return NCAA news first since it's March Madness. Obviously, this is just a toy example, and there's a lot of different things that you can do within your application to make it perform better. Now that we've made all the local changes that we'd like, let's go ahead and see how we can test our production trace against this. As you can see, our server's been consistently auto-reloading as we've been making changes, so we're able to test this live. Let's go ahead and jump back into LangSmith. Back in LangSmith, you'll see we're still in our production trace here. We can go to this Run in Studio button, click on this little arrow. All we need to do is make sure that we have our local endpoint defined. We can either view the original thread, or we can clone the thread locally. Let's go ahead and clone the thread locally. Now that we have our thread cloned locally, there's a few different things that we can do. We can go back to the very beginning, modify our input, and rerun it, or we can continue the conversation from here and see how our agent's going to perform. Let's try and continue the conversation from here and see that even though it's just returned college basketball news, if it's smart enough to figure out what it should return. So let's go ahead and give it a try. You can see now, even though it just responded about college basketball, we're able to continue the thread, ask about basketball news again. And it changed the query to the latest NBA basketball news for today, and it went off and made that tool call. You see, we also got 10 results and went a little bit deeper for each. We then got a very concise, well put together response, highlighting mostly the NBA news. This is exactly the result we wanted to. And now we're able to test those changes locally, debug them, iterate, and then eventually push those into production once we're ready. LangGraph Studio also comes standard with production deployments through LangGraph Platform. If you'd like to learn more about LangGraph Platform, we'll be sure to link to some more content below. LangGraph Studio is available now and free to use. We can't wait to see how it transforms your agent development workflow. Give it a try and let us know what you build with it. Check out our docs below and join our community to share your experiences and get support. Thanks for watching, and happy building.